enlivening, interesting thing, but actually considering the truths that are being presented and how does this apply to me, and how will this help me lead a purposeful, positive, progressive, enlightened life. So that's the idea behind why we have these times. So we've been exploring the idea of karma and free will for the last few weeks, and we're going to wrap up with, I'm not sure whether it'll be a short night or a long talk, really no way of knowing. I'm thinking it's going to be a shorter one, but it doesn't always end up like that. So before speaking, let me pay my deep respects, my gratitude to my own spiritual teacher, Jagat Guru, Siddhaswarupananda Paramahamsa, and to all the previous great sages, rishis, yogis, transcendentalists, who have very kindly and compassionately given us these truths. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Siddhaswarupananda Paramahamsa Iti Namine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, there's probably people who haven't, who are here tonight who haven't been at our previous discussions, talks. So just basically, it came up due to a question from a friend about the nature of karma and how this ties into free will, and that, if our life is predestined, when we come into this body and our destiny is laid out ahead of us, in other words, there's a certain amount of suffering and there's a certain amount of pleasure or happiness that we will experience. So in other words, it's destiny. We have our destiny. It's even described in the yoga teaching that our destiny is to have a certain amount of breaths. This is actually how one's time in this body is described in the yoga teaching. We are allotted a certain number of breaths, and when that number runs out, that's the end of this portion of our time in this particular body. So this is why yoga teaches you to hold your breath. Retention is some of the, there's some of the pranayams that you do, like, breathe in for 4, hold for 300, breathe out for 6, No, there's other reasons for it. So this is our destiny. So our destiny is already there. It's already ahead of us in this life. So the question is, well, can we change our destiny? Do we have free will? And the answer is a combination of yes and no. So it's not complete. Our free will is not complete. We are not the Supreme Soul. We are not God. Therefore, our will is not always done, not being the Supreme Soul. But our destiny can also be changed. So it's a combination of both. And maybe this is one example can help us to understand the destiny we have in this life going forward and how it still involves free will. So let's say, for example, you made the choice and you engaged in the activity of booking a ticket to fly to Singapore. Okay, so you made the choice, and because of that choice and the action that flowed from that choice, you booked a ticket to Singapore, you went to the airport, you hopped on the plane has taken off, and now you're heading to Singapore. Can you change your destiny now that you are in the air? Can you end up in London and you're on a train, on a plane to Singapore? The answer is no. You must now go to Singapore. That's it. You don't have the free will to say, I want to go somewhere else. Because of the choices and the actions, now this is where the destiny is heading, and that cannot be changed. But while I'm on the plane, I have free will. I can lie down and sleep. I can watch a movie. I can walk to the back of the plane. I can chat to the person next to me. I can have an argument with my significant other. I can engage in meditation. I can chant my japa. I can eat a vegetarian meal. I can eat some lamb or whatever, right? Fish, whatever the choice. So you see how there is a combination of free will, free choice, combined with destiny. Bruce, is that understandable? Okay, so we've been talking about this for quite a while. So what we wanted to wrap up tonight is a couple of ideas. One is what we touched on briefly last week. Well, some people kind of, in modern parlance, call it, well, you're victim blaming. If we are experiencing what we are experiencing due to our karma, and we are the architects of our karma, then people who are suffering in various ways, it is their karma to do that because of actions they have engaged in, therefore they deserve it. Does that argument make sense? So people think, therefore, this is a cruel idea, this idea of karma. But I've told this story before, but I want to relate it again to show how, yes, this may actually be, not may be true, it is true. So a number of things is, one is, does that mean that we don't treat people with compassion because they deserve it? If they're suffering, it's their fault, they deserve it. Hands off. And, well, that's the first thing we want to do. But then we also want to touch on how the law of karma and the suffering and pleasure which comes through that law of karma is actually a good thing. And how actually suffering can actually be understood as a good thing. That may not be immediately obvious, or maybe it is, depends on your experience in life. So we want to touch on these two ideas. So the first one we want to look at is the idea of, well, it is someone's karma, they're suffering, they deserve it, something they've done in the past, therefore there is no need for social activism, there's no need to feed the suffering people, there's no need to do so many things to help other people because it's their fault, they're suffering, it's their karma. So the example we'd like to use, and this is a very short-sighted vision of this reality. And the example that my spiritual teacher used was one of a family who are going bushwalking, Springbrook, somewhere like that, Mount Tambourine. There's some kind of hairy places there. If you're not careful, you can fall over off the track, down a cliff or something like that. So the mother and father get their 3 kids together before heading off down the trail, and they say, look, now come on, little Johnny. And, he's the young little kind of kid who's got a bit of ADHD, likes to run around a bit. And I say, Johnny, stick close to your mum and dad and to your older brother and sister, okay? Don't go wandering off. There's some dangerous places here. Just stick close, all right? And little Johnny goes, okay. So they head off down the track. And there's nice things and this and that, and little Johnny's doing well for most of the time. And then, his curiosity got the best of him, and he kind of slips off the trail from where his family's heading, and he heads off the beaten track, so to speak. He heard a noise, and he saw a bush turkey or something like that, or heard a bellbird, something. So he kind of heads off and heads deeper into the bush, away from the trail. And then because he's kind of looking around and he's a bit active boy. He doesn't see, and he falls off down a cliff face, this big, deep cliff face, and he lands on some rocks below, and is quite badly injured, broken bones and concussion and things like that. And he can't help himself. There's nothing he can do. Meanwhile, his mum and dad, kind of turn around and notice, little Johnny's missing. Okay, all right. You guys have you seen Johnny? Brothers and sisters say, no, he was there. I don't know where he is now. So immediately they kind of go, okay, right, you come with your dad and you come with me and we're going to, find Johnny. So they're heading out, they're calling out, Johnny, and they haven't found him, that he's not calling back, so they really start to worry. They start feeling, what's going on? And so eventually kind of head in a little bit. They see there's some broken twigs or something, and he obviously may have gone in here. So they go in and they find, yes, that there's Johnny. They actually see him fallen off the cliff. He's just lying there, motionless. So understanding that they had told little Johnny not to wander off, but he did anyway, it's obviously his fault, right? It's not his parents' fault that he did it, it's Johnny's fault. So the parents go, listen, Johnny, we told you not to do it. This is what was going to happen. you look after yourself, and we're heading off now. And you come home when you're ready, right? And told you not to do this and never do it again, you naughty boy. You know, if I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times. So the parents then head off to the waterfall, right? Do you think? Some people here are nodding their head. No, for those at home, no, there wasn't. What do? Immediately, even risking their own life, they climb down the cliff. Without even a second thought. They don't do a cost-benefit analysis. What about, maybe I'll fall, maybe I'll become concussed, maybe I'll have broken bones. No, it doesn't even enter their head. They'll risk their own life. And of course, when they get down there and one of the parents is calling the medivac and et cetera, et cetera. And of course, they're concerned for little Johnny. And they're taking care of him. And then the medics come, the paramedics come and take care of him. So even though it was his fault because of him not doing the right thing and not following good advice, and he was harmed because of it, there is no question of a lack of compassion or care or help. Is that understandable? It's completely understandable. So this also applies to the reality of the law of karma. There is no question that we should or should not help others, whether it is their karma or whatever we understand. It is the nature of a person as they begin to grow spiritually, as their love for the Supreme, therefore their love for others grows, then tolerance, compassion, all of these things, care for others, is a natural outcome of their own personal spiritual growth. This is the natural outcome. So therefore this addresses the idea of the law of karma, the suffering of people, and whether we should or should not care for those who are suffering. It is the natural outcome of spiritual growth, spiritual love. So the other thing, and I got something I wanted to read. Earlier in my life, some of you may know, I was brought up in the Catholic Church, and I was a little saint. When I was young, I was a little saintly altar boy, serving at the Mass with the priest and, considering becoming a priest when I got older. I was so saintly, little child, little cherub. But then as I got older and became a teenager, that changed, as you maybe can imagine a little bit. And I became an atheist. And part of my reason becoming an atheist had to do with, as we look around the world and we see the unlimited suffering that the majority of people go through, let alone those of us who are privileged and live in a country like Australia, we still suffer greatly. Birth, diseases, old age, death, broken legs, broken hearts, broken minds, all kind of things. But there are people who are actually even worse off, materially speaking, than us. So because I was under the erroneous impression, having heard this, that we have one life, this is the only life we have. Before this life, we did not exist. We come into existence, we live this one life, we surrender to God or we don't, and then after this life, then we either go to play harps for eternity, or we get to play rock and roll in hell forever while boiling in oil. And this was the choice we had. So therefore, whatever suffering or pleasure or happiness, or some people have a privileged life, some people don't have a privileged life, then this must be all due to God arbitrarily saying, because there is no previous existence, there is no such thing as karma, this is the only chance we get. So that combined with the suffering that I saw means either, there is no God, because why does God allow this suffering to happen? Or if there is a God, he's not done a very good job of it. I would have done better myself to allow this suffering. So again, this is a deep subject. I don't want to go into it in depth, but I wanted to read something from a book that one of my spiritual guides and mentors, Radha Krishna, wrote, a book called The Quest. And part of this, one of the chapters in this book is called, is to do with evil and suffering in the world. And how it's possible that there can be an all-loving, all-knowing, all-compassionate God, and how there can still be suffering here, and this suffering has a purpose. So these are the premise that he puts forward. Number one, God is all merciful, all just, all loving, all powerful. Because there are certain philosophers say that God is all loving, but there's suffering in this world because God is not all powerful. In other words, there's Satan. There's this guy called Satan, and it's due to Satan that the suffering is here. It's not due to God, and that God is unable to control, this other entity, and therefore it is, Satan who's creating suffering and evil in the world. So therefore they have to say God is all merciful and all loving, but he's not all powerful. Therefore he can't do anything about it. He wants to, but he can't. But here it said God is all merciful, all just, all loving, and all powerful, etc. He has endowed all living beings with freedom of choice. Our freedom of choice balances on the decision to serve or to not serve God. God has created this world as a residence for those of us who do not wish to serve him. The world is designed not for enjoyment, but for attempted enjoyment. This is important, because we become disturbed by suffering in the fact that we are not fully, everybody, including ourselves, is not fully joyful all the time. We see this as a defect in this place, in this world, yeah? The fact that there is any suffering at all, even down to a stubbed toe, let alone something worse than that, is hard to understand, because we are under the erroneous conclusion, the erroneous idea, a number of erroneous ideas. And one of the ideas is that we are meant to enjoy ourselves here. That's what life is all about. It's about enjoying yourself, right? We are here. This world is created for us to enjoy ourselves. That's the idea we have. And of course, and we combine with the idea that when we identify ourselves as this body which we're walking around in, we think this is me, then this world is for me to enjoy. I am this body. I am my senses. I am my desires. So I am meant to enjoy myself materially, sensually, physically. I'm meant to enjoy, but there is suffering here. So this idea is the world is designed not for enjoyment, but for attempted enjoyment. Perfect happiness cannot be found in this world. Perfect happiness cannot be found in this world. In addition to point 5, the previous one, this world is also designed as a place of rehabilitation and reformation. This is the purpose of this world. This world is designed as a place of rehabilitation and reformation, not as a place of punishment, for those who have chosen to seek pleasure away from the Supreme. By experiencing this world and the nature of this world, the fallen soul is gradually reformed. The reformed soul, by his own free will, chooses to love and serve the Supreme, and thereby enters into union with the Supreme. The soul who exists in harmony with the Supreme is immersed in perfect bliss. So that perfect happiness and perfect bliss we are looking for can only be found when we, the Atma, are exist in perfect harmony with the Supreme. And existing in that perfect harmony, we experience perfect bliss. And the example that I've used numerous times before is that in my own life, I experienced going to a place of rehabilitation and reformation. This place was called Boys Town. Boys Town, this is back in the 60s. So in the middle of the 67 or somewhere around about there, I ended up in a place called Boys Town for over 2 years, for various reasons. It wasn't for being a cherub. It wasn't for being a little saintly boy. It was the people I was hanging out with just led me astray. I never led anyone astray. I was the one who was led astray. So I ended up in Boys Town. Now, Boys Town was a reform school for wayward youth. And what was the purpose of it? To reform our attitude, our consciousness, and our activities. And there were restrictions within this place called Boys Town. There were things that we could do and we couldn't do. And there were things that when we did them, we were punished. There were things that when we did them, we were rewarded, right? Because we were kind of dumb. Smart kids don't end up in Boys Town. It's, I just want to do what I want to do, man. I don't care what my parents say. I don't care what the law is. We're going to steal cars. Why? Well, because I want to. Because I want to enjoy it, right? We're going to break into, I remember we broke into this. Can they still get you like 50 years later for crimes you did if you confess to them? Or maybe I won't mention the town. Me and two friends broke into this cafe and emptied it of all the cigarettes and other things that were in there. That was one of the things we did. Now, I knew it was wrong. My two mates, we knew it was wrong, but we didn't care. We wanted to do what we wanted to do when we wanted to do it. So we did it. So this, anyway, as you can see, Boys Town acted as a reform school, and I again became a cherub. I again became a saint. So it worked to some degree. No, it did. I learned. And I was very fortunate because although at times it was difficult, there was one particular, it was run by the Christian brothers, the De La Salle Christian brothers. And there was one particular brother, his name was Brother Brian. He was an amazing guy, amazing person. He was quite young. I think he was only in his 30s. And he actually, because of him and because of his care for the boys, and particularly his care for me, it is by his influence and his care for me that I actually began to see my life differently, my future differently. So it wasn't just the punishment that forced me to change. It was the care and compassion of others, particularly of Brother Brian, that actually helped me to grow as a person and to change. Is that also understandable? So similarly, from there, my life then became more in harmony with how it should be. And my life being more in harmony, I did not get into so much trouble with the police, with my parents, with others. There was more conducive. I had a better life, and have a better life now. So similarly, this world is not a place made by God for us to enjoy. Our real home exists. This is not it. Just like I had a real home where my parents and family, brothers and sisters were. Boys Town was not that home. So to go back home was the goal, to live in harmony, in love. So similarly, this world is a place of reform where we can learn by the ups and downs. The ups and downs are meant to help me, to learn, and to one day go bing and ask the question, man, why am I suffering? I don't want any suffering, and yet it comes. Why? So we start to ask that question. So this is one of the purposes of pain and suffering. My spiritual teacher uses a nice example about, in our body we have sensations, the sensation of touch, and there's also the sensation of pain. And he used the example that if there wasn't pain that you experience through different sensations, he said, for example, I could be talking here, there could be a fire just over to my right, and I might just have my hand over here, and my hand could be dangling in the fire. And if there was no sensation of pain, then, I just have a stump left because it would just burn off. Is that understandable? But no, there is the sensation of pain. So what do I do? If you put your hand on a stove, what do? You go, or something like that, right? And because you feel the pain, you pull away from that cause of your pain. True or not true? So pain has a purpose. It's actually to help me, not to punish me. So the pain and suffering of this world is to help me. But I still have free will, whether I to learn or not learn, to act or not act on this reality. So I'll wrap this up with the story I've told many times as well, but it paints a picture that I want to paint. Basically, the idea, the moral behind the story is what we judge as being even good karma or bad karma, suffering, enjoyment in the material world. From the vision of eternity, From the vision, from that spiritual platform of understanding who I am, the nature of this world, the nature of the Supreme, my real goal and purpose of existence is, this will throw a different light on our experiences of this world, what is so-called good and what is so-called bad. And the story is from ancient China. It's called Sai Wang Shi Ma. Sai Wang had a horse. Sai Wang Shi Ma. Sai Wang had a horse. So there was this older gentleman living in this small village, and he had one son, and he had a horse. And he's getting older now. He couldn't work in the rice paddies for much longer, but he had a son. And in traditional cultures, the children look after the elderly parents. So he had his retirement, social security, his son. So, of course, with the horse, he could do many things with the horse. And his friends came to Sai Wang when he acquired this horse and said, Sai Wang, what a great blessing. You have this amazing horse. You can do so many things, travel, can help you carry things, and etc. And Sai Wang said, well, it may be a blessing or it may be a misfortune. I don't know, time will tell. And his friends were astonished. Of course it's a blessing. No one else has a horse. You can do so many things with a horse. What's wrong with you, Sai Wang? Of course it's a blessing. He said, it may or may not be. I don't know. Time will tell. So, time moves on. And one day the horse gallops off, and an hour passes, it doesn't come back. 2 hours. The night passes, the horse doesn't come back. A day passes, a week passes, still no horse. So Sai Wang's friends come to him again to commiserate. Sai Wang, what a great misfortune. Your horse is gone, not to return. This is horrible. Your life is much harder now. And Sai Wang said, well, it may be a misfortune, or it may actually be a blessing. I don't know. Time will tell. And again, his friends astonished. Sai Wang, what's wrong with you? Can't you see your life is nowhere near as good as it was? Of course it's a misfortune. It's scratching their heads, they walk away. A week later, the horse comes back. But not only does the horse come back, it brings with it 3 other horses. And they all come, and they are now also with Sai Wang. What do you think his friends did? His friends came up, Sai Wang, wow, far out, man. What a blessing. You have 4 horses. Sai Wang, being Sai Wang, well, it may be a blessing or it may be a misfortune. I'm not sure. Time will tell. Friends walk away, scratching their head again. Man, this guy is too much. So one day, Sai Wang's only child, his son, is breaking in one of the wild brumbies that... See, the Chinese are in Australia. Brumbies. No, forget it. Comes back and he's breaking one of the horses, and he's thrown off the horse. It's so wild. And both of his legs are broken. He's paralyzed from the waist down. Sai Wang's friends from the village come and say, Sai Wang, we feel for you so much. You're your only son, and now not only will he not be able to look after you, you will have to look after him. What a great misfortune this has happened. Sai Wang says, well, it may be a misfortune or it may be a blessing. I don't know. Time will tell. So around this time, there was the Mongolian army was invading China. And the emperor sent his forces, his army out. He went to all the villages and rounded up all of the able-bodied men, came to Sai Wang's village, took all of the men away, except for Sai Wang's son. So this is the reality. As we look at our life and the things that happen in the moment, we may think this is a blessing, this is a misfortune, this is good, this is bad. But with that vision of eternity, that transcendental vision, we can actually see things in their perspective. We can see how maybe this particular thing, which I thought was bad karma, may actually have been the catalyst that actually moved me on in my spiritual journey and actually helped me to make decisions using my free will to inquire into the nature of my life and where real happiness is to be found and why I am suffering. What is the nature of the Supreme? What is the purpose of my brief time in this life? What should I do with it? And as we were reading from that book, that then this, and as I said at the beginning, this wisdom is meant to act as a torchlight on my path in life. So when I come to hear and understand, aham brahmasmi, I am spirit. I'm the eternal spiritual being, only temporarily within this body. I am not my body. I am not my mind. I am not my desires. True, lasting, satisfying happiness cannot be found in the temporary because I am the eternal and I am spiritual. True happiness is to be found when I am living a life of harmony with the Supreme Soul of whom I am an internal part and parcel. And to live a life based upon that spiritual reality is actually where I will actually find true peace, true happiness, true joy. In fact, bliss. So then we see there were things which were catalysts that put me on to that path. And it was due to that particular suffering that actually was the catalyst. So therefore, in the same way as the pain we experience when we put our hand on a flame helps me to learn. So similarly, the ups and downs of our life, we should not see them as being anything more than actual opportunities that can help me to grow spiritually. And we will see them very differently. Is that okay? So, what we want to do is, because I talked a long time, we want to get straight into some more kirtan, because kirtan is the solution. So maybe while the rest of the band's coming back, I'll just read something really nice. Tomorrow we are celebrating a sacred day, the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this world 500 years ago. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is understood as being an incarnation of Krishna, an avatar. He came to this world 500 years ago, and he actually has given us the process, the means by which we can actually get off of this cycle of birth and rebirth. And he spread widely throughout the whole of the world this practice of kirtan, of hearing and chanting the holy names of the Supreme. So I'll just read the first these three verses that Chaitanya has given us in connection with the holy names. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to the living beings. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna, Govinda, etc. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies, and there are no hard and fast rules for chanting these holy names. O my Lord, out of kindness you have made approaching you very easy by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. One can chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking himself lower than the straw in the street, more tolerant than the tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor I have any desire to enjoy beautiful women. Neither do I want any number of followers of mine. What I want only is that I may have your causeless devotional service in my life, birth after birth. So these holy names can render all benediction to all of us. So let us chant them.